Welcome to What's Cooking, New Ulm. I'm Rebecca Fliszar, the dietitian with the Hearts Beat Back Heart of New Ulm project, working to reduce and eventually eliminate heart attacks in the 56073 zip code. Today we have a great guest, someone that's familiar with the show, and Tammy's going to be making two recipes today. You're going to find out how quick and easy it is to make both a beef casserole and a pumpkin spice cookie at the same time. Tammy, this is going to be quite a feat, so tell us a little bit about your recipes.
Well, this recipe is quite a quick one. It's easy to do. Basically, you have everything on hand. And we're going to start with the beef casserole, and we're going to brown our hamburger first while I chop the tomatoes. We'll get that going here.
Now these recipes both are going to include, we're going to get a quick casserole through, which you can make in, how much time do you think this is going to take total?
The preparation, if you do your preparation a few days ahead like I like to do, cut the celery and the peppers and things, you can do it really quick when you get home from work. Otherwise, it probably takes 10 minutes, cut that stuff up, and it says about 35 minutes in the frying pan to get your rice and things done, because we turn it down and we simmer it. You can turn it up, speed it up a little quicker than that, and you probably can get done in 20 minutes or so. You got to play with the recipe and see how it works.
Great. You know, that's a nice, easy recipe, and you're going to find that you can make the cookies at the same time. All right, so we're going to start with the tomatoes. You're going to notice that Tammy has already cut up our celery, green peppers, onions. We have some frozen peas, so a tremendous amount of vegetables going into this dish. Now, how many tomatoes are we going to be cutting up today?
We need 3½ cups, and, well, I'm thinking it's only going to take 4 or so, but I want to make sure we had extra. We didn't want to be sitting here without running short. Now, the other night I wanted to make this recipe. I was in a hurry, and of course I went to the refrigerator. No green pepper, no tomatoes. So what I did was I looked in the cupboard and I had stewed tomatoes. And I opened up a couple cans of them, cut them up, and I used them instead of the fresh tomatoes and the peppers. Well, if you omit the salt, because there's salt in the canned tomatoes, we don't want to get too much sodium, and it turned out quite well. And that's a good thing to do this time of year when tomatoes are so expensive. You know, you can get by just as easily with canned.
Right. So what Tammy is saying, so we're going to use the salt that was in the can of the diced tomatoes in place of the salt that this recipe calls for. An easy switch to make. Another way to go about that is to use canned salsa. Just a couple of weeks ago, we saw Karen O'Neill prepare a great homemade salsa. If you still have some of that in your pantry, go ahead and pull that out and include it in this recipe as well. All right, Tammy, what's next?
Well, as soon as we get our pan going here, and this gets fried a little bit. I don't like to add my veggies until I fry the hamburger a while.
Good. Now you're going to notice that this is an extremely lean hamburger that Tammy's using, 97% to be exact. This is exactly what you're looking for at the grocery store. We want to make sure we're choosing that 90% or above. Oftentimes people will ask me, but it's so much cheaper to buy the chuck. Remember, your total yield will come out higher on our 93% lean. So you're going to get more product for the same price. So it is a good investment. It's better for your heart health, and it's better for the bottom line.
And it's also easier to clean up your stove in your kitchen when you don't have all that grease.
That's right. Popping out of the pan, right?
We've learned that a long time ago, that clean up with hamburger that's under 93 or less is really greasy.
Okay. Yep, these tomatoes are filling up our cups pretty quickly, so it's not going to take much.
No, it probably isn't as many as I figured.
You will notice the price of things like tomato and broccoli, some of our other green peppers, is definitely going up at our grocery store right now due to the freezing this past winter. Do find those vegetables that are going to be at a lower cost. We're still looking for the benefits. Try to change by color and add different foods in as you like. So we can change the taste of this recipe to appeal to you as long as you make those substitutions in our vegetables.
And that's right. I mean, you can add your carrots to this. You can vary it quite a bit with your... I'm sure you can add green beans instead of the peas. You won't have a problem. It's basically whatever you have on hand.
You know, this will be a great, actually, summer casserole as well. Anything coming out of the garden can be thrown into this recipe.
That's correct.
Good.
And I was thinking about, and I don't know what your opinion is we add 1.5 cups of water to do the rice. What would be if we added like 3/4 cup of water and a 3/4 cup of tomato juice? Would that be too much salt? Or would that be okay?
Well, if it's pure tomato juice, then that's going to be great. Anything like a V8 is going to be very high in salt, and we want to be careful with that. It will change the composition of our recipe and change the overall flavor. So if you're going to squeeze your own tomatoes, Tammy, you're good to go. If you're going to use the V8, it's going to put us a little bit high in our salt.
First of all, we're not squeezing, we're going to use the blender if we're going that route. I don't want to spend too much time cooking in the kitchen, but...
Right. We have plenty of Heart of New Ulm events coming up, and we want to make sure you're regulating your health. Remember, our campaign is Take 5. Take 5 minutes for yourself. Make sure you're getting 5 fruits and vegetables, at least 5 days of exercise per week. Any of these are going to be great for your heart health. We want to make sure you're following along with the mission so we can eventually reduce and eliminate heart attacks in our 56073 zip code. All right, Tammy, looks like we're rolling along.
Yes, we are. We'll be ready to add our other ingredients, and then we'll finish measuring these out and see how we're doing. This is browning up quite nicely. Things never go as quickly when you're not in your own kitchen.
That's all right.
But
we do notice that when you're using an electric stove, your preparation time might be a bit longer. If you're using your gas, things are going to heat up and cool down a lot quicker. So do compensate for that in your recipe time.
that's correct.
All right, Tammy, what other kinds of vegetables would you like to throw in a casserole like this?
Sometimes if I don't have these, I get a page of frozen mixed vegetables. I dump them in. They go quite good.
Right.
We use a lot of mixed vegetables in pretty much all our casseroles already at home.
And Tammy brings up a good point. Our frozen vegetables are going to be just as high in nutrients as those fresh vegetables. So if you don't have fresh vegetables on hand, feel free to use those that come right out of the freezer. Remember, your canned vegetables are going to be already a little bit softer, so we'll change your preparation time, and they might contain a little bit of sodium. So be aware of that as you're adding those into your recipes as well. So that's about a half a pound of hamburger, correct?
That's correct.
Good.
We have cut down our hamburger and most of our hot dishes at home too already. And all you need is basically the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So we're cutting out our red meat a little bit without giving it up. Now this recipe I think serves 6 to 8, so you're not going to get much, red meat in that recipe. It's just so you got flavor.
Right. And ground turkey will work as an excellent substitute in this recipe as well.
That's very true.
So about how much are you adding there, Tammy? What
We're
are our
adding
measurements?
1 cup of celery, 1 cup of pepper, and 1 cup of onion.
All right.
And I just dice this up quickly.
If you like to add color to this recipe, you're already going to get the red from the tomato, but different kinds of pepper, a yellow pepper would add a lot of color and different flavor to this as well. So be creative when you're choosing your vegetables and adding them into this recipe. So we're going to let that simmer and brown. And when do we start the cookies, Tammy?
We will start them as soon as we get this done, unless you want to get started. But we're almost done. We get this cooked a little bit. We'll add the tomatoes. We'll dump in a cup of rice, 1.5 cups of water, and then we'll just leave it simmer until your rice is done and the liquid's absorbed. And
all right.
we got 2 cups there. Okay, now we'll finish adding our tomatoes here. This should be 3.5 cups of the tomatoes. And we will put in, before I forget, we'll put in a cup of peas.
Great. This is going to have some great color to it.
I'll put them in.
Now, how long will we let that set once we get the rice in?
It depends on how fast your rice cooks. I'm thinking 20 minutes.
All right.
If we keep the temperature up. So now we will add our spices. Now I'm going to put in 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you're on a low salt diet, you could omit the salt. I'm adding a little because of the rice, could use a little, but if I'm using canned tomatoes, like I said, we will omit it entirely.
This recipe does allow for that amount of salt. Remember, if you're following a low sodium diet, you want to restrict yourself to 2,000 milligrams per day. This is going to easily fit within this meal plan. This only is going to offer about 200 to 300 milligrams, even with this small amount of added salt. Remember, between 6 and 8 portions, this is a very small amount of salt, so it's going to work just fine.
And then we add 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. And then the last is 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper.
Again, all of these different seasonings and herbs can be used to taste. So if you like paprika, if you like the taste of pepper, go ahead and add a little bit more. This does not affect your overall nutritional content and is definitely good for your heart health.
Okay. Now I already measured this out. This is 1 cup of rice.
Okay.
And it's brown rice.
And you could definitely use things like wild rice or other kinds of rice to add different kinds of flavor to this as well. So feel free, again, to modify as you go.
And then we add our last ingredient is 1.5 cups of water.
Okay. And you are going to get a lot of, you're going to get a lot of water pulling out from your tomatoes and things as well. So that's where you're going to get the additional water to help break down that rice a little bit and soften it up. So.
And if you're halfway through and it looks like you're losing water and your rice isn't quite done, you can add a little bit more water.
Sure.
So we got that all mixed up, and we'll put the lid on.
And that's it.
Yep, we'll probably leave it high.
Okay.
I assume we're on high, and we'll watch that. And that takes care of this recipe, and now we'll start our cookies.
All right.
You need a bowl.
As you can see, these are going to be quick and easy, things that you can do and make a meal for your entire family in just under 20 minutes. So as we keep rolling through this, you're going to find out that many of these can have modifications to your taste, but they'll still come out great.
Now, the first ingredient to our spice cookies, if I don't dump it all over the table, is a cake mix. This is a spice cake mix. It doesn't matter which brand. Some brands you'll find are a little more spicier than others, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You dump that in your bowl. Then we take our can of pumpkin. And there's no eggs, no milk, no oil. You just got your cake mix. You dump in your can of pumpkin.
Yeah, that is what keeps it a low-fat cookie. You know, without adding that extra egg and milk and oil, you're going to find out that these cookies are very low-fat, and we're actually going to throw some raisins in there, so you're going to get a fruit, part of a fruit serving in these as well. So everything in moderation, these are going to be some really great cookies.
Okay, and then we'll stir that up, and then we can, now the nuts in the raisins, I put in 1 cup of raisins, 1 cup of nuts, but you can, if you like nuts, you can add more raisins. And then I kind of got that started. And then we need a tablespoon of flax.
You know, flax is something that we recommend on any heart-healthy diet. It's going to be very high in fiber, and it's shown to help lower your cholesterol. Remember, our goal is to maintain a good cholesterol ratio, making sure our good cholesterol stays high and our bad cholesterol stays low. Flaxseed should be part of anybody that is working on reducing their overall cholesterol level. Now, Tammy, this isn't going to really change the flavor of your cookies.
No, it doesn't. No. Probably not enough flax to change the flavor, but yet you're getting a little more fiber.
Right. Anytime you can add this into any recipe, on your cereal, anywhere you like to have it, is going to be a benefit to your good heart health.
That's correct. And then we'll get a cup of nuts and a cup of raisins. We'll just dump that in here. Now this is a drop cookie, so it's going to be wet and kind of sticky, but it bakes up just fine. Now
you know, when I think of pumpkin and things, I think of the fall and the winter, but actually these are a great summer cookie as well. They're easy to make, and they incorporate those raisins and nuts, so we have a lot of our good monounsaturated fats, and so it's a good thing to keep in our diet as well.
That's correct. And I cheated. I usually buy the big bag of, the large bag of nuts, and I chop them up in my spare time and store them in the freezer. This time I just got them pre-cut. They're a little cheaper when you buy them in bulk.
But this is a little easier. Make things go a little bit faster.
Add them all.
Yep.
You never get too much, then we take a cup of raisins.
Cranberries would also be a great substitution if you'd like to change this flavor. Raisins are a little bit cheaper, but you can try dried apricots. You can try any kind of dried fruit you'd like in this recipe as well.
When I first came across this recipe, it called for chocolate chips. I'm not a chocolate chip pumpkin eater, so I decided to add raisins and things that I'm used to eating in my pumpkin cookies.
Right. It makes it a little bit heart-healthy, a little more heart-healthy as well.
Okay, now we'll get our cookie sheet and we'll spray that.
All right, let me mix while you do that.
Okay. I think we are pretty close.
All right. Okay. All right, Tammy, I think the batter's ready to go.
And this
Okay.
recipe makes approximately 42, 45 cookies, depending how big you make them.
Okay. And these will bake for how long?
Approximately 15 minutes.
Okay.
It'll vary on your cookie sheet if you got a dark surface,
Mm-hmm.
light surface. I use a light surface because it doesn't bake as fast and the cookies get done better.
Okay. Yeah, this is a nice sized cookie sheet you have here.
I like to do things in volume and quick.
Yeah. And how long will we keep these? Do they keep pretty well?
I usually put my cookies in the freezer,
Okay.
and then I take them out as we use them.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually gone. I don't know how long they keep. They don't last long.
Good. And I can smell that casserole is getting done pretty quickly. It's smelling really good. You can see that those vegetables are going to start softening up. We'll throw these in the oven and we'll be ready to go. Well, while you're doing this, Tammy, why don't we go ahead and check in with Holly for Fit in 5.
All right. Welcome to Fit in 5. Today we're going to talk about some of the more common mistakes that we see in a physical activity program. The first one is usually when people don't set goals. If you're going to start a physical activity program, we usually recommend that there's some goal behind the activity. So do you want to just move your body and feel better? Do you want to get fit? Are you going to train for a 5K race? Is weight loss your goal? Determine a specific goal and go from there, because that will determine the rest of your exercise program. Another mistake that we often see is people not working quite hard enough. You know, we like to see at least 150 minutes of moderate physical activity in each week, and that can mean walking, gardening, mowing, or it can be vigorous activity, running, biking, jumping rope. Whatever you do, you should be working hard enough to at least need to breathe out of your mouth rather than to be able to breathe through your nose fairly regularly. If you see sometimes people are walking and they're reading the paper or reading a book, then we want to make sure that we maybe ramp up that intensity level a little bit. Another thing with that is if weight loss happens to be your goal for your workout program, you want to make sure that you're working out hard enough. Sometimes we'll get a lot of questions about people being physically active for an extended period of time, but they're not seeing any change in their weight. And what we find out when we look a little further is that maybe their intensity isn't up just as high as it should be. Just remember, you should usually be breathing out of your mouth if you're working fairly hard. The other mistake we see is not warming up and not cooling down. If you're going to go for a walk, you want to start walking for the first couple minutes at maybe a little bit slower pace than what your normal walk pace would be. This just allows the heat to build up in your body and get your muscles and your joints warm for the duration of your workout routine. At the end, we also like to see people cool down for a few minutes and then also make sure that you stretch your muscles. That's one of the things that people really lack in their physical activity program is they just don't stretch enough. And you want to make sure that those muscles stay nice and elastic. That also helps prevent soreness at the end of your exercise routine or the next day, especially if you're doing something that you really haven't done a ton of. Probably one of the biggest and most important things to consider also when you're doing a physical activity program is find something that you like doing. Did you know that the #1 reason avid exercisers adhere to their exercise program is they're doing something that they're good at and that they enjoy? So if you don't like to run, don't run. If you can't swim, the obvious choice then is don't swim. But find something that you like to do that you can enjoy doing. And find maybe a couple of different activities so you can mix it up a little bit to eliminate any boredom. Enjoying your exercise routine is key to sticking with your exercise routine. For today's Fit in 5, I'm Holly. Have a healthy day.
Thanks, Holly. Those are some great tips. Make sure you're staying active. As the weather warms up, make sure we're getting outside and enjoying what we have here in Minnesota. All right,
Well,
Tammy?
I think our cookies should be about done. They look about done.
Yeah, those
It's
look great.
kind of hard to tell, but what I do is I lift them up a little bit and look under the bottom, and if they're brown, they're good to go.
Okay.
So we will let them cool here for a minute before we take them off the pan. Should be all right there. And I think our hot casserole here, our hot dish is about done. We can dish that up.
Okay. Yeah, that looks great and smells great. I think this is going to be a nice, easy meal for anybody to prepare.
And like I said, you can vary it. You can do anything you want.
You'll notice in that casserole as well, most of the liquid has been absorbed, so it's a nice, filling, complete meal that we have.
That's right.
And Tammy, you brought us in a nice salad. We're going to plate that out with that as well. Where'd you come up with this salad?
Well, it's what we have at home. I usually use a little lettuce, and we put a lot of cabbage in everything we use. And I use broccoli and carrots, and there's some celery in there because celery is inexpensive and it's a good filler, and
Right.
it does have some health benefits.
Good.
And it's a way to get everybody to eat it. And of course, spinach. We eat a lot of spinach. We just dump that into almost everything we eat.
So it's kind of a throw together whatever you have in the refrigerator
That's
salad, right?
correct,
Great.
right.
Good. And we had a nice cookie for dessert.
That's right. So there's your plate, and you can top it off with whatever dressing you're used to.
Okay. All of these recipes will be found on the Heart of New Ulm website as well. You're going to notice that some of our recipes are from our life clinics located around New Ulm. You can go check out your blood pressure, your BMI. You can even find out your pulse rate and your body fat. So check those out and link into the Life Clinic website, and you can connect with all of these great recipes.
And there you go. A
Great.
meal after work.
Yes, and this looks great. It looks filling, and we'll definitely have leftovers for tomorrow. So what a great meal.
That's correct.
Yes, well, we sure appreciate you being here today,
Thank
Tammy.
you for having me. I love being here.
Good. Well, that's it for this week's episode of What's Cooking New Ulm. We look forward to seeing you again next week.